Hey there, my name is Jessica Williams. Welcome back to Learn English Everywhere. Today you're gonna listen to a podcast on the topic, how to cope with stress. As English learners, you often feel stress out due to your inability to express yourself freely in English. This podcast will help you understand how to cope with stress, and this will be a perfect listening practice for you. Before we get started, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Well, what is stress? Stress is a normal human reaction that happens to everyone. In fact, the human body is designed to experience stress and react to it. When you experience changes or challenges, your body produces physical and mental responses. New situations. Stress can be positive, keeping us alert, motivated and ready to avoid danger. For example, if you have an important test coming up, a stress response might help your body work harder and stay awake longer. But stress becomes a problem when stressors continue without relief or periods of relaxation. Listen to how some people share their views on how to cope with stress. Take notes if possible.
I think we all have stress in our lives, but the extent to which we can cope with it really is important as to whether we are happy or not in our lives. I think one thing that everyone can do is think about making practical changes in their lives. For example, with their time management. If you always leave yourself with no time to be ready to go somewhere, then you're always going to end up being late and feeling stressed. I think also the people that you have around you, some people cause you stress, so it's a good idea perhaps to minimise the contact that you have with these people. Other practical changes that you can make is perhaps with your job. If your work is causing you unhappiness, actually trying to make changes there, perhaps changing your job or changing the amount of contact again that you have with certain people. Another important thing to do, I think, is to relax properly every day, to make time to properly relax your mind and body. And your mind and body obviously are inextricably linked. So if you're mentally tense, then your body will also be tense and vice versa. So I think good things that you can do and common things that people do are yoga, perhaps meditation, perhaps some form of just stretching and lying on the floor after a day at work and just switching your mind off. The other thing that really helps people to relax is sport. Team sports or just going out for a run. A lot of people actually say that can be a form of meditation in itself. So I think to conclude that it's really important to look at the changes that you can make in your life and to actually make time to relax and to do sport and to do things that you enjoy, and also look at practical changes that you can make.
Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about stress. And if you'll permit me, I'll read a quick definition. Stress is the collective term for the insults a body must endure when thrust into a less than congenial environment, example, overwork, unemployment, a shopping mall in December, or a vacation with one's in-laws. Okay, if we think about this, it obviously means that stress can signify different things to different people. What might be very stressful for you is not stressful for me, and the other way around. We have many areas of stress in our lives. We all have to work. We have homes and families, children, financial worries, health worries. It's no wonder we're all stressed. But in fact, maybe stress isn't all bad. There's such a thing as good and bad stress, in my opinion. Some people need a bit of stress in order to work well. Other people don't. If I have a deadline to meet in 10 days, I will divide the work into 10 equal parts and do one part every day. A friend of mine will leave everything till the last minute and stay up for 2 nights in a row, working on everything to have the report or document finished on time. The result is the same, that we both finish at the same time, but the method we apply are different. And I couldn't work like that. I would find that very uncomfortable. Whereas as for him, he actually thrives on that. Some people need that extra push, that impetus to get them going. on a daily basis as well, in the office, in the workplace. It's maybe the adrenaline kicks in, something like that. But I prefer to be calm. But having said that, I think it's impossible to avoid stress completely. We look in our modern world, the daily commute, thousands and thousands of passengers on the trains, on the roads, the traffic jams. Maybe you can't find a seat on the bus. You already feel like you've done a day's work when you get to the office. And then you have to face the same thing in the evening, going home. So that's not a very pleasant experience in our lives. Then there's the work itself. These days people are working longer and longer hours. Bosses are more demanding. The work just piles up. You go away for a day and you come back, you've got 3 times the amount of work to do. And this can have a very serious effect on people, on their morale, on their physical well-being as well as their mental health. Then, of course, when you've fought the traffic and arrived home, then it's time to think about the children, the family, dinner. Did we go shopping? Is there enough to eat in the fridge? Children's homework, children's activities, before it's time to sit down for an hour of TV and go to bed, and then the whole thing starts all over again. When people get too stressed, of course, they can have nervous breakdowns, they can have suffer from depression. There's an increase in diseases, heart disease, things like that, strokes, other related diseases. And that this is not good. So how do we survive? Well, there are many different ways of dealing with stress. Everybody has their own recipe. Some people pour a gin and tonic when they get home or hit the pub. Other people do sport, go to the gym, things like that. I think it's important to have some outlet, maybe a hobby, a passion, something that you take seriously, something that's important for you. Other people just like to have time alone, quiet time, which is important, maybe to go for a walk or even to do things like meditation, that kind of thing. Exercise, of course, is very good too. Healthy mind and a healthy body, yeah, that kind of thing. But like I said, especially in our modern world, it's very, very difficult to avoid stress. When you live in a city, it's busy, it's noisy, it's dirty. You don't get enough sleep, which is another factor. Some people can use spiritual means to avoid stress. Maybe they're part of a community in a church, something like that. Diet is also important. So there are many ways. I mean, we can drink the gin and tonic or not, but maybe it's good to look at our overall diet and level of health. Do we eat enough fruit? Do we eat too much red meat? There are many little things we can do. I'm not saying we can change our lives completely overnight, but we can change in little ways and hopefully reap the benefits of it, and hopefully be less stressed and live longer and be healthier and happier.
I remember my father's words to me just before I left Ireland to move to Scotland for my university studies, and my father told me that the world was my oyster. This really means that the world was open to me, that there were no boundaries to my expectations, that I could achieve anything. Little did I realise, though, that at university I would experience a tremendous amount of stress. Most people can relate to this. Most people have experienced tertiary education with constant deadlines, papers due, examinations looming, etc. So I particularly remember my senior honours at the University of St Andrews, and I had to write my senior honours dissertation on quite an obscure area of American poetry. And unfortunately, during my academic research, I really lacked a lot of inspiration. And with a deadline looming, I suppose within the horizon of 1 month, I still hadn't put pen to paper. I had completed a lot of research, but the actual writing of my paper had been delayed by certain anxieties, a certain amount of writer's block. So I was extremely stressed over the Christmas period. My paper was due on the 10th of January. I was going home on the 14th of December, with just under 4 weeks to really write my paper. It was extraordinary. I remember sitting down to my Christmas lunch with my family and having to leave 20 minutes later. Normally a Christmas lunch in Ireland would last about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And within 20 minutes I had to leave because I was shaking with nerves. I had so many thoughts going on in my head. So stress, we can see, is a remarkable thing, and it has very different effects on different people. Personally, how I used to cope with stress as a younger child when I was facing examinations in secondary education, I used to play the piano, so I would sit for a couple of hours, not a couple of hours, but 35 minutes, 40 minutes, just playing scales up and down the piano keyboard. I suppose in some ways it was a repetitive action, moving up and down, and it really distracted me from the stress of academia. Other friends I remember at university would turn to other methods to cope with stress and to de-stress, to find some relaxation. Certain students would turn to Eastern methods, to yoga, or they would find homeopathic remedies, rubbing lavender, for example, into the temples of one's forehead. Finding so many solutions to these things. But for me, personally, these things didn't work. I find that trying to tap into Eastern culture is something alien to me. I'm not from East Asia, I'm not from Japan. So trying to understand these cultural references for me was very, very difficult. So I always had to come back to something that I knew, such as music, and trying to find some sort of escapism through that. Unfortunately, I couldn't turn to literature because that's what I was studying.
We have come to an end. Did you enjoy it? Did you catch all what was said in the podcast? Catch means understand, so I'm saying, did you understand everything that was said in the podcast? Let me know in the comments section below.